Right. Hello, Internet. Thank you for joining me once again. I'm here to talk to another vertical drama star, the very wonderful Kyle Maddox. So I'm going to go over to Kyle and ask him to introduce himself to all of you.
Hi, how's it going? Great intro, by the way. You didn't even need those first two takes. Yeah, my name is Kyle Maddox. I'm an actor, writer. I've been in the vertical lane for just over a year and a half now. But I've been in different verticals like, Mr. Thompson, You Found the Wrong Girl, Deadly Vows. Yeah, I've been loving it. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, so anyone who gets into verticals, normally then we go to IMDb because you look up people and you're like, okay, what other verticals have they been in? Where have I seen them? And then everyone is going to get very interested in your IMDb because you have quite an interesting background. Because this is not the only job you've had in your life, is it? What is your other career that you've had?
It is not, yeah. So I actually was a police officer before I became an actor. So that's what I pull a lot from with my acting and my writing as well, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, I was a cop for a while, loved it. I miss it every day, but I was fortunate enough to be able to transition into acting and entertainment here in Los Angeles. So
So when you were growing up, were you interested in both?
yes, yes, I directed a short film when I was like 6 with like the neighborhood kids on the old VHS camcorder, all that good
Mhm.
stuff. Wrote it, had a script, delivered it to my friends, and everything. But yes, the short answer is yes. I was involved and interested in that from a young age as well. My dad was also a cop, so that is where that interest stemmed from. I sat in his cop car at 5 years old, turned the lights on, was like, "This is what I'm going to do with my life. This is awesome." But yeah, I feel very fortunate to be able to have kind of pursued both at this point.
So I have to ask about 6-year-old Kyle. Do you remember the title of it? What was the plot?
I do. It was called Doctor Robotic, which is crazy that I even remember that. But it was more or less like a Spy Kids that would have came out about that time. So very, very heavily influenced by that. But it was like I have a younger sister, so it was her, our cousin who was about her same age, and one of her other friends. They were like essentially Charlie's Angels. It was like three spy girls. I was the Charlie, I guess, of that group. I was their boss. I had another neighborhood kid that was the villain, Doctor Robotic, and we had like a big winter like ski glove that. Anyway, it's ridiculous, but yeah, it was fun. We did a premiere and everything. It was a lot of fun.
That sounds brilliant. I mean, that sounds like a family favorite. We need to get that made. So my kids.
Hey, someday it might be made. Who knows?
So, did you act in things in high school? Did you follow it through then?
No, I did not actually. So that's what's kind of crazy about it. And I don't remember how much IMDb goes into detail on this, but basically, I've written and performed stand up comedy when I was in high school. But I'd always intended to be a cop. So I was taking criminal justice classes, hitting the gym, getting in shape, doing all those things to make that career a possibility. But I was also writing stand up and performing it. I was living in Salt Lake City at the time, Utah, and I'd drive myself downtown every Wednesday night, do an open mic at the comedy club. I was actually able to make some money off it a couple times, but kind of just did it for fun. I'd make little YouTube videos and sketches and stuff with my friends, but ultimately fully intending to just go law enforcement after high school, which is what I did.
And I mean, that's pretty tough as 16-year-old going and standing up in front of a stand-up comedy crowd. I mean, that
I
takes
loved it.
big cojones, I would say. Yeah.
I loved it. Honestly, it was a lot of fun for me. It was kind of my therapy in a lot of ways. I was dealing with my parents divorcing at the time. I have great relationships with both parents at this point too, but yeah, that was how I dealt with that. I'd write jokes about it in stand up, and I wasn't necessarily the person that would talk to people like about that stuff.
Mm.
Stand up was my way to kind of express that. I found out I was pretty good at it and had a lot of fun doing it. And I mean, yeah, when you're on stage, I'm sure theater is the same way. I've never done theater, but that's a goal of mine. There's that live feedback, right? That rush, that adrenaline. And oddly enough, the only thing that compares to it is an adrenaline rush of being on a call, like as a cop, but very similar. Yeah.
So you do that and kind of, but this is all very much your cop. So how long were you working as a cop? How many years?
Just under 4. So I started 2015, December of 2015, and I moved to Los Angeles in 2019.
Okay. And then the obvious question is was there one thing, like a big moment where you're like, I'm changing my life? Or was it more of a gradual, I'm going to make this change. I think this is what I need to do.
It was both. It was a lot of little factors leading up to the move, but I did have kind of an aha moment where this is what's kind of crazy. I was working night shift, and my sergeant at the time, his cousin was an independent film director, is an independent film director, and he needed cops to arrest his main actors in a bar scene. And so my sergeant, literally, I was on shift. He hit us up on our little laptops. He's like, "Hey, anybody want to be in a movie tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely." So I went to the bar. I was on shift. I just told dispatch, "Hey, I'm going to be busy for an hour and a half," and that was it. I did 2 or 3 scenes, arresting these actors and just basically improving with them and just having fun on set. And after that, I was kind of like, "Yeah, this is definitely a dream of mine. I still want to kind of see through." But it was tough. I mean, I walked away from a pension, from a stable paycheck, which I can tell you since moving to LA is very underrated. But yeah, so I 6 months later I moved out to Los Angeles and started taking classes, and here we are almost 6 years later. August will be 6 years. So
But you've done this longer now than you were a cop.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's oh god, that's
Yeah.
weird to think. I've never actually thought of that. Yeah, I have.
So if it's all right to ask, and you don't need to answer this, how did your family kind of view that? Because I could see that parents are like, but
Mm,
Kyle, you've got a stable job. Why are you,
right,
was
right.
that okay to handle?
It was better than I thought, honestly. I'm very fortunate. I mean, you can probably tell from my short film I made at 6, they're always very supportive of me and my dreams. I think honestly, I think it helped a lot that they saw me as a cop first because they can trust my ability to handle myself, to make responsible decisions. And so I think they kind of just trusted that to some degree that, I've given it the thought that was required, and I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't fully committed to it. And so I think that was easier for them to buy into. And also they don't, I'm sure they don't miss worrying about me every night and wondering if they're ever going to get that phone call. And
Yeah.
so I think they're happy that the only thing shooting at me now is a camera.
It's very good. It's very good. Look at that. What a wonderful segue. So you go to LA. Um, what's the first paid acting gig then you did in LA?
Yeah, so acting, I'm gonna have to think about that. I did a modeling job when I first came out here for T-Mobile, which again, that was because I was a cop. It was a modeling job where there's like a new program for police or first responders. So I did that, and that was great. That paid me actually for 2 to 3 years, pre-strike before everything kind of changed with
Mm.
all those. But paid acting job, my first one, actually, you know what? It was a short film I did, and the guy who wrote it and created it was one of the actors from that night at the bar.
Oh, wow.
And same directors, same
Yeah.
exact directors. They actually reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember us, but we heard you were maybe in LA. Are you interested in the script?" And I was like, "Oh, absolutely!" Like, it was my first job, so I was like, "Yes, send it to me. I'll do it." Like before I even read it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I ended up working with them on 2 or 3 projects since then. Um, but it was a lot of fun. It was called Tapu,
Mm.
TAPU. It's on my IMDb, but that was a really fun time. It was a great transition too, because I was very new to the industry, but there's a lot of familiar faces on set, right? The guy that I'd met at the bar, the actor creator, the directors, they were really cool. They were the ones that were cousins with my sergeant. So it was very easy for me to kind of fit into that environment where I think otherwise it could have been totally intimidating and a lot
Mm.
more nerve wracking. But yeah,
Just out of interest, is it something you put on your resume CV that you are a former cop? Is that something that you think is worth putting on there and gets people's attention, or is it something you leave off?
I hope I try to always find a way to kind of weasel it into the conversation. You'll probably notice, but I think it's one of the things that makes me unique. I mean, I'm 31 right now, but I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes in those 4 years I was a cop. The
Mm,
stuff I've seen, the things I've dealt with and had to break up with, help with, just the things you see every day, that you would never see in any other aspect of life. I think that is so rich as an actor.
mm,
It helps me to give different dimensions to characters that other people maybe won't be able to, and just like I can't bring, certain other angles to characters that other actors can. So I think that's my thing that makes me unique.
mm,
And aside from that, I'm very passionate about that field still. I miss it every day. I'm still very connected to a lot of my friends I worked with. And so I guess that's kind of my way of keeping it alive in film.
mm,
As you've noticed, I mean, a lot of the stuff I write deals with that too, that topic. But yeah, I do think verticals, especially, there's recently been a lot that are involving driving or a lot of action scenes, like the Deadly Vows one I did. There's a ton of stunts in that, and firearms. I was playing a detective in that one, but more often than not, I think it's served me well, whether driving abilities or just stunts.
mm.
I did defensive tactics too. When I was a cop, I was our defensive tactics instructor. So just the hands-on stuff we used to do, I think has helped me a lot.
Mm. So you mentioned verticals. Which one was your first role?
My first one was Mr. Thompson. You found the wrong girl, James.
Okay.
Yep,
So you had a good entry to verticals because you got to play a CEO, which is how
I did.
you
Yeah,
need to
I
tick it off
was
the
on
resume, don't
everything,
you?
but
So had you heard about verticals before? Kind of, did you have any knowledge about the genre, the style?
no, none whatsoever. I'd been on backstage. I was doing my normal. I try every day to get on all those, the deadlines, the backstage actors access, and apply it as whatever I can. But I found it on backstage, and I just applied, did a self tape, and was cast. So had no
Uh,
idea what I was walking into.
um, so yeah, how did you find that experience? And kind of, have you got any fun memories from that set, or kind of things that you're like, wow, I had to learn this fast?
Yeah, tons of fun memories. It was a really good cast. My co-lead it was her first vertical as well, Caitlin Olivia Carter. She was great. The Everyone from the PAs to the producers to the clients on set, everyone was phenomenal. We had a lot of challenges we worked through. There's all the high rise scenes. I think I mentioned this in like a TikTok or something, but our AC broke in a high rise building. We were on like the 23rd floor, so it's very hot, middle of July in LA, and we were doing 12-hour days there for 2, 3 days with no AC.
Is that all
So that
those
was not
office
ideal.
scenes? Because there's a lot of
Yeah.
time spent. Oh my goodness, there's a
Yep.
lot of time spent in that office.
Every
Ooh.
office scene. If you look closely, you can probably see some gnarly pit stains on my shirt. But yeah, it was very hot. We got it done though. So that was fun. We got to film in a hotel that was really cool because they reserved the whole section of the hotel. We had, a really big, nice wrap meal that was graciously made by the hotel. So that was a fun way to kind of close out that shoot. But yeah, tons of great memories. I met a lot of good people that I'm still, again, in regular contact with today, and I'm looking forward to working with them again on something. So
And when that came out, did you get a reaction on social media? Because I know that's one of the things of like you're suddenly you sort of open yourself up to a new channel of fans.
yeah, you know what? It wasn't immediate, but I had no idea the scale of those things, like verticals, what the audience they were going for, what they were really doing, or what their goal was. So when I saw, I think one of the producers like messaged me or something a month or two later, was like, "Oh, hey, we got this many views. Congratulations!" Like, "Oh, wow, that's pretty cool." So I like, looked it up, downloaded the app, and was able to watch it all. And yeah, it's pretty amazed. It's really cool to think that so many people can see anything you do, whether it's acting, writing, or if it's totally unrelated. It's very cool to be able to share that with so many people. So I'm very grateful for that with verticals. They're very broad audiences.
Mm. So obviously this one that was like you tick off on the vertical CD. You've done CEO, and then I think presumably your next one's Deadly Vows. Is that correct? No, Deadly Husband. Name
Yeah.
check just doesn't
Yeah.
it? Um,
Deadly Vows. I think they changed it. Yeah.
yeah. So that one is it's a really good four piece if people haven't watched it. So it's yourself,
Mhm.
Dima Rylan, Alexandra Swanbeck, and Brooke Moultrie. And you are, thank goodness you're in that story
Yes.
character, because we need your character in that story. Um, and you do play a cop, as he said. Um, what was it like?
Yep.
What did you try to bring to that role as someone who used to be a cop?
Mhm. It was a lot of fun. Again, first of all, it was very fun. I'd actually, so another random story, the producer of that, so Lincan Media is the production company that did that. Anthony Lean, he was the producer on it. I had met him on my first ever acting job. Wasn't paid, but my first acting job in LA was a short film he was acting in. I was playing a cop in that one, and I actually arrested him. Which oddly enough, it was for like a domestic disturbance, which is now a recurring thing in a lot of verticals, which was the theme kind of in that one too. So it's a very full circle moment. But yeah, I gotta work with him. He was great to bring me in for that. As far as being a former cop, I just tried to bring realism to it. I mean, that's my biggest mission of everything is to be accurate. I understand it's a very small percentage of the population that is from that line of work or a first responder, nurse, EMT, firefighter, whatever it is. And so I always try to really do it justice. And even if it's like little things like the director was great on that one too, to be able to collaborate with me. And he'd ask me, okay, well, how would this be done in real life? And I would say, well, it might not be this way, but I could say this instead. Is that cool? And he'd go, oh yeah, that's fine. Just do it. And like there's one, I forget the scene, but I remember there was one scene with the gun at the end where he was telling me he was like, this is what I'm envisioning. I want you to come in, you'll have this, and I won't give any spoilers, but he's like, you do this, you do this. I was like, okay, what if I do this? So like there was a knife in the scene. And I was like, what if I kick the knife away? Because that's the first thing I would do after, taking down a threat is get rid of the weapon so that he can't use it again. He's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, okay, cool. So it's very, very collaborative in that regard. And so I'm really grateful too that they gave me the freedom to do that. But yeah, it was fun. I had a good time. Everybody, Dima, Alex, Brooke, they're all great. I mean, I'm sure you've talked to most of them by now, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And you had to do an excellent swimming pool rescue.
Yes, it was my first one. I'm sure it won't be the last, but it was a great one to get my feet wet. Sorry, that's a terrible joke. Yeah, it was fun. So again, it was the middle of summer. So it was, I think, July or August when we filmed that one. It was just not too long after Thompson. It was an interesting scene from jumping in the pool fully clothed to then having to remember my dialogue and deliver clean lines while I'm swimming in, a 10-foot pool trying to tow Alex to safety. But she was a great scene partner for that. She helped me a lot as far as like actually kind of swimming with me and not just dead weighting it in the water. That would have been really difficult for both of us. But yeah, and then it's funny. I remember getting out of the pool was my most nervous part because I was in dress shoes and it was wet concrete in the bottom of the
Mm.
pool. So I was like, I told Alex, I was like, if we fall, I'm just gonna fall backwards. No promises that I won't fall, but I'm gonna fall backwards. So thankfully it didn't happen. We got it done, I think, in 2 or 3 takes. But yeah, it was fun.
Dress shoes are not made for grip, are they?
Not really, no.
Oh, fun. Um, so just talking about like when you watch verticals or TV. So anyone who follows you on Instagram, and they really should, you're quite I would say both entertaining and educational because you will point out things that slightly maybe enrage you when you watch. What are the kind of the things that you're just like, if I could change one thing and just how stuff was done, what's like the top one that you wish everyone knew and would get right about police procedure?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm glad you find entertainment and you don't think I'm just ranting because sometimes that's what I think it comes off as. But I would say for me, the biggest thing is duty belts. It's such a small thing that, again, no one will ever notice unless you've actually worn one. But I have seen in my 31 years, probably 20 years of which I've been consuming TV, one or two shows that have actually gotten it right. And
Mm.
I'm going to spill the beans here. Any producers, anyone listening, they can write this down because I'm going to give it free for everybody to hear. But the duty belts, every time I see one, they're loaded up in the back. What I mean by that, radio, handcuffs, pepper spray, baton, everything is in the back. Sometimes even the bullets, the magazines, they're in the back. That is not even close to accurate. They need to be in the front because if you think about it, if you're on a call or if you're in a situation where you need that stuff, it's going to be very hard to reach around your back, kind of, dig and find the right pouch and unsnap it, pull it out cleanly. Whereas if it's in front of you, it's easy to get to. It's quick, especially with the magazines. It's easy reloading. It's a quick, minimal movement. So that's why, anyway. But yeah, so the TV show Southland, I'll give that one credit. That was an old LAPD show from the early 2000s. That one was great. They nailed that because, they had LAPD people on set. And what blows my mind about some of these big shows, I won't say the names, I guess, in case I end up working with these people at some point. But
Yeah.
I don't know if they don't have those people on set or they just don't say anything or don't listen. But it takes me completely out of it. The video I think you're referencing I posted the other night was a show I was watching. Great show, love that show on Apple TV. But the cop had his radio in the middle of his back, which as a cop too, there's a lot of times you end up in a fight, you're wrestling, you're on the ground. If you roll onto your lower back and hit a radio like that, that is a
Ow.
solid 8-pound brick, and it's going to mess up your lower back for the rest of your life. Or just sitting in a car for 12 hours a day, it's going to create issues, right? So that's the biggest thing for me. Sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, it's good. I think we know that this is the goal now. Come on, well, let's sort this out. We can make one thing better and slightly reduce
Yeah.
Carl's stress levels.
Yes, for sure.
Just talking generally, which shows do you rate, or like, is there an actor where you're like they get it right?
Definitely Southland, the one I already mentioned. That was great. That one actually was a big influence on me actually becoming a cop, which was really cool because I ran into one of the actors from it at a premiere and I got to shake his hand and tell him that, say, hey, man, I became a cop largely because of your work in this show. And that was a really cool moment. But yeah, definitely that one. Your Friends and Neighbors is another good one. Not necessarily with the police stuff because, spoiler, that's the one I was just talking about. But it's a great show. The acting's great. I love the premise, especially as a writer. I think that's a really cool topic they dive into. But aside from that, I mean, Reno 911, that's not the greatest example of like adequate police work, but they nail the humor so perfectly. I mean, if you've ever talked to anyone in, teacher, cop, firefighter, nurse, they have a very specific sense of humor and they nail it in that show. You can tell they related a lot to what real cops do. The camaraderie, the jokes that people play on themselves and other people in the office. That was great. Reno 911 is top of the list.
Okay, excellent. So that's what we need. So you've mentioned here, and we need to talk more about this. So you are not just an actor, you are a writer as well, which is very cool. And I'm in a privileged position that I have read some of Carl's scripts and they're all good, but there's one in particular, which, I think is absolutely brilliant, which is called Hostage to Love, which is for Vertical. And it is a romance. I would say it's very much romance, but it is also a police action vertical that I think would work brilliantly. Are you happy to share a little bit more about that and kind of what inspired that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually on set for one of the other verticals, the one that hasn't released yet. It's called Double Life, is the CEO's wife. Ashley Michelle Grant's in it. She's great. She's the lead, but I can't remember if it was her or me and one of the producers, but I remember talking to someone on set about kind of like what we're talking. They were talking, oh, it's so cool you're a cop. That's awesome. And we got talking about that stuff. And then I was thinking it'd be really fun to write something like that where I could kind of express and share my knowledge of that world, but in a vertical medium. And so I wrote it in 3 nights while filming that project. My girlfriend was gone. She was on a show somewhere in like Canada, I believe. And I was home alone. And so I would come home after being on set all night and I'd stay up till 3, 4, 5 in the morning and just write. And I got that done because I wanted to send it to people on set. And I sent it to, the producers, I sent it to Ashley. And I was just like, hey, this would be really fun to do. Just kind of not really intending to have it be done anytime soon, but just like, wouldn't this be cool? And yeah, the basic idea, it's a heist story at its core and also romance. So the main character, the female lead, she is a bank teller at like just your standard Wells Fargo, whatever local bank you
Mm.
have. The bank gets robbed, and she ends up being rescued by a SWAT member, a member of a SWAT team. And so during that process, it helps her realize that's actually what she wants to do. Similar to, I guess, me leaving law enforcement for acting, it was her moment of, oh, this is what I really want to do. So
Mm.
she becomes a cop. Not only that, she joins the SWAT team because she wants to be able to help people in those exact same situations. Comes to later find out that the team leader she's assigned to is the guy who saved her in that bank.
That's
And
good.
so
It's a
there's
vertical.
yeah, there's
So, yeah.
there's a few twists that I won't hint at too
And I don't
much,
tell the
but
twists. The twists are too good to share.
there's some good ones. There's a lot of drama, obviously twisted in there as well, but I think it's really fun. It was inspired a lot too. I'm a big fan of films like SWAT.
Mm.
The Town, it's another good one. Both, oddly enough, have Jeremy Renner in it. He's another actor I totally look up to and love. But yeah, there's a lot of influence from those two films specifically,
Mm.
especially SWAT. So I think that would be a really cool way to kind of bridge that gap between like the vertical world and like your action heist movies. Like I'm sure you know way more than I do, but I haven't seen a whole lot of those in the vertical
Mm.
genre yet, like the big bank heist or big, cops and robbers theme. And so I guess for me, it's partly too just wanting to tell police stories selfishly through that medium. So
Because I think as fans, we're really keen to see new stuff, and obviously we bring in new audience as well. But it just seems such an obvious plot device and story to use because it gives you the pace, it gives you tension, it gives you cliffhangers. You can do the
yeah,
twists. You still got your villains. You've put in a romance really, really well. So it's just, to me, it's like a no-brainer that this should be made. So yeah, could you talk a bit more about your unreleased project and what you've got coming out? Because that sounds,
yeah,
we need to know more about that.
definitely. So it's called My Double Life as the CEO's Wife. I played the CEO in that one. Again, the female lead is Ashley Michelle Grant. She's great. She was lovely to work with. But she's essentially an artist who kind of lives two lives. You can kind of tell from the title, but
Mm.
not in a bad way. She's definitely like the very good hero, if that makes sense. Like there's no, I know a lot of times verticals, there's like double edged swords and, hidden
Yeah.
agendas. There's none of that here.
Yeah.
She's great. I think actually, Rebecca Berg, you just talked to her. She's in it as well. And she's not the hero, I'll say, but yeah, she's great. She killed it in that role. So did Ashley. So it's essentially following Ashley's character Zoe, her journey through navigating this life as someone in a high class society who's maybe not used to it.
Mm.
Using art kind of as that through line with there's different banquets and art showcases, which is cool because it highlights a lot of really really well done paintings too that were a part of the production. And
Mm.
so it was really cool. We filmed in a lot of great locations too, as far as like the banquet scenes, things like that.
Mm.
And it's actually really funny. One of the guy who was cast as my nephew in that, his name's Eeyore. I don't know if you've seen him and stuff. He's kind of been blowing up lately. He's Ukrainian, Eeyore Savchuk. I think I totally butchered that name, the last name, but love you, Eeyore, if you're watching. He's an awesome dude. He actually lives like 3 blocks away from me now. We need to go grab coffee. But yeah, I saw him running down the street the other day when I was walking. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. We filmed it in December, and it's unfortunately run into a couple delays kind of in the post production process and the pitching of distribution side of it. But
Mm.
I'm still in contact with the producers. I've been told it's going to be very soon. So hopefully, yeah, cross your fingers on that. But it'll be fun. It'll be on, I believe, Honey Reels is where it's releasing.
Okay. That's good. So we need to look out for that one, and I'm sure you'll tell
Yeah,
us on Instagram when it's out. Um,
definitely.
so going forward, kind of what would you like to do? You see yourself hopefully balancing the writing and acting going forward. Is that the hope?
100%. Yeah, my ultimate goal and like dream, honestly, with this entertainment thing is I would love to write and act in the stuff I write.
Okay.
So obviously with Hostage to Love, I'd love to play the male lead, the SWAT officer. One, because I know everything's going to be done accurately. Like there's a scene in there with like a sniper rifle and different things like that. Again, selfishly, I don't know that I would trust anyone to be able to do that if they haven't done it in real life.
Mm.
And I would at least want to make sure I was on set to facilitate that. Um, but yeah, that would be a lot of fun. That's the ultimate goal. I'm open to doing both separately. I still do a lot of acting where I'm not involved at all in the script, and I do
Mm.
writing as well where I'm not acting in it. So the ultimate end goal would be to do both and be able to create, work for myself and for others and
Mm.
tell the stories I want to tell. But it's always about finding that happy medium with what people are buying, what is actually getting made versus the stories you want to tell. So
I have to ask as well. Obviously, you have a stand-up comedy background.
I
Can you
do, yeah.
can you see writing that, doing a comedy vertical?
For sure, for sure. It's not a vertical, but I did just write a comedy pilot for a TV series not based off, but similar to like Reno 911, Trailer Park Boys. And that was a lot of fun. So I would totally do that with a vertical. I actually do want to write a rom-com. That's one of the subjects I would love to hit next.
So yeah, well, please make it happen. And I have to know, like you said, you wrote it in 3 nights. What's your process? Are you on a computer? Are you on a desktop? Are you a
Mhm.
pen and paper? Like what gets you in
So
the zone to write?
yeah, when I have an idea, I just run with it. So I have Final Drafts, the program I use on my laptop. And with that one specifically, I came home, I had an idea from talking about it. It was fresh. And thankfully, I already kind of knew that world and knew the story I wanted to tell within that world. So I just started typing. I just let it rip. And yeah, 3 days later, I had, what was it, 110, 115 page script. And obviously, I'd love to say that was it. And I just sent it out and it was great, but it's not. It takes a lot of revisions, a lot of drafts after that. So then it's going back through it, figuring out where can I kind of consolidate, if that makes sense. But
Mhm.
where can I make it make more sense? Where do I want to put some twists? Where do I want to maybe change a couple things? So I've gone through 3 or 4 different drafts since. So the one you read is the final draft, the current one, but it did not come off the page like that instantly. It took some time. That
Yeah,
was probably over the course of 2-3 months, just going through it again.
it's worth the time. It's worth the time. I
It is.
promise. So just a final question. We've talked about heroes. What about villains? Who's the biggest villain you've gone up against in vertical, would you say?
Hmm. I would say, man, that's tough. There's two that come to mind that are just so good at playing villains, and which is funny because they're really nice people.
Yeah.
But Dima, obviously, and Deadly Vows, and then this is going to be hilarious to people watching. But Jessica Lange, she's done a lot too recently, but she was in Mr. Thompson. She was the antagonist in that one, and exceptionally talented actress. She's great, so good in the fact that she reminds me so much of like one of my ex-girlfriends. And so being on set and like seeing her in that role, I was just like, very little acting was needed for those scenes, you know what? But yeah, she's great. So it's like her and Dima obviously play very different characters, but Dima was great in the sense of like your kind of slasher horror movie villain, very jump scary, very just psychological. And then Jessica was great, just honestly in her conniving, power hungry kind of rags to riches character, I guess. But yeah, I would say those two for sure.
Yeah, Duma does a phenomenal dead eye stare. I don't know how he does it. It just chills you to the bone. You're like, oh,
I know, and he's such a nice guy. He's so cool.
exactly. And then you talk to him and it's like, it's so lovely. How does he just turn that switch and go? And then you're like, okay, it's acting. This is acting. This is what they're all good at.
That is true.
So yeah, I just can't thank you enough for spending some time with me. Yeah, you've been absolutely brilliant. So if there's any final message you want to give to the internet before we finish.
Oh man, well, thank you so much. First of all, this has been a real treat. I'm glad we could finally make it happen. I know you were one of the first people I've talked to in the vertical world that with someone watching them. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your input and everything you're doing for the space. I would say my message is, yeah, I know times can be tough right now, post strike, post COVID, but it's never too early to learn a new skill. I never thought I'd be writing, but here we are, and now that's something I really enjoy. So yeah, just go for it and don't be afraid to reinvent yourself if you need to.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen.